go for the time being. So sorry to be the bearer of this news to those who'll be disappointed by it, but there are no plans to develop the VR for Odyssey any further than its current state.
Immersed Robot.
Hello everyone, welcome to Immersed Robot again, and sorry for that slightly melodramatic opening, but it does highlight the genuine disappointment from the Elite Dangerous VR community regarding what was announced in Frontier's Super Cruise news this week. So for anyone who isn't aware, it was announced in that live stream that other than general bug fixes, there are no ongoing plans for further VR development in Odyssey. They did give a tiny, very tiny spark of hope that this could change in the future depending on how their plans change, but there was definitely no ongoing commitment to VR. And this is obviously incredibly disappointing news for anybody that is a fan of playing this game in virtual reality. Now, I covered my own perspective on various things regarding VR implementation in Odyssey over a few videos now, and I was always of the opinion that I understand that they have bigger things to sort out with Odyssey at the moment, and I'm perfectly happy to wait, even if it takes years really. It feels like by making this statement they are closing the door almost entirely on the prospect of ever bringing the full Odyssey experience to virtual reality, which is a real shame and perhaps highlights in some ways what I perceive as Frontier's direction with Elite at the moment, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but there have been a number of things said recently which imply that unless features within Odyssey and Elite Dangerous in general going forward can be justified in raw gameplay loop mechanics, then perhaps they're considered almost dead weight by Frontier at this moment in time. And speaking for myself, the number one reason I play Elite Dangerous is simply because of the immersion. It's not a numbers game for me. It's not where I grind constantly at the cost of all else just to see my numbers increase. That is not the game to me. Elite gives like the closest approximation of what it would be like to actually fly a ship around a reconstruction of our galaxy and experience what that could potentially be like, you know, in the closest way we have in this current day and age. And it's immersion that I'm talking about there. Immersion has always been the central focus of why I personally play Elite Dangerous, and of course VR plays the most important role in that, and it always has, going back many years with Elite Dangerous. It's always been a central focus of the game, and it's why a lot of players will come to it in that format and want to play Elite Dangerous in VR. Now, I understand that the player base in VR probably isn't the largest, but there is still a significant number, I would say, of people which have come to the game simply to play it in virtual reality. It's listed on the Oculus PC store, it's on Steam listed as a VR game, so I don't think these things should be glossed over either really. And just speaking about immersion, just how incredible would it be to carry the immersion that we feel when playing in VR in our ships, carry that immersion over to the on-foot sections, and imagine what it would be like to feel like you're actually wandering around these stations, looking out over to the landing pads, and then flying down to a planet and then exploring this planet on foot in virtual reality. It would be an incredible experience, one akin to No Man's Sky but focused more on realism, and that's really what a lot of people would want with this. And I'm not even sort of focusing on the combat sections, because people will point to the first-person shooter sections in Elite Dangerous Odyssey as being one of the difficulties in bringing this game to virtual reality. I'm not even talking about that necessarily, because I can almost consider the combat sections, the first-person shooter sections, to be another example of simple ways for Frontier to add a gameplay loop mechanic rather than focusing on the immersive nature of providing more in-depth on-foot exploration mechanics and things like that, but that's a subject for another day anyway. But for people who don't play Elite Dangerous in VR and it isn't a priority for them, perhaps they see it as more of a side thing, perhaps even a gimmicky kind of thing, then I can understand a certain amount of frustration from those people and their perception of VR players complaining about the current implementation in Odyssey. So I don't want to ignore this aspect, because they're right in many ways. Frontier do have bigger things on their plate to sort out at the moment with Odyssey, so perhaps VR shouldn't be a focus necessarily at the moment, and I'm willing to take that point of view, as much as, I can still be disappointed with it, I think that is a valid point of view to have at this moment in time. But I would also ask these people for perhaps a little bit of understanding as to how critical a feature VR is for a certain section of the player base. And as I mentioned, for many people, I would say that it's almost the only reason to play this game at all. And to experience the galaxy in that way, to feel like you're actually there sitting in that ship, is something that shouldn't be demeaned in my opinion. Other things that I've heard regarding the VR implementation and frustrations from players who don't think it should be implemented is the difficulty in providing full VR implementation in Elite Dangerous Odyssey. And they're absolutely right, I can't diminish this argument necessarily straight off the bat. Room scale, motion controllers, hand presence, full natural interactions with everything, locomotion options, all of these things are incredibly difficult to just hatch it into a game like that. It's not going to be an easy process to get to that point, and I could foresee that being many years off, even if they choose to implement VR in that way, which is the no compromises way I suppose that they are talking about. But I would say that I think there are compromises that should be made at this stage because VR is such an important feature for many people. And the easy compromise is simply to add a VR camera to the head at the moment, allow us to continue playing with mouse and keyboard or gamepad when on foot, and most people who play in VR will take that as a necessary compromise at this moment in time. That implementation is not difficult. The full VR implementation is, but to just provide a VR camera and a heads-up display, a reticule, and those kinds of things, those things that are missing from the vanity cam, which you can get some kind of experience with in VR at the moment, if they could provide that kind of solution just to smooth over this transition, then I think that would go a long way. And I struggle to understand why they are steadfastly refusing to do that, because given the alternative at the moment, which is what they're saying, zero VR implementation for on foot sections, I would happily take, and I think most people would happily take, a compromise in this situation, because the 2D display projected out in front of you, although you could class it as a compromise, it's really not a great way to play in virtual reality, and I just don't think it is necessarily what people who play in VR want. It completely takes you out of the experience of being immersed in that game, so I wouldn't consider that a compromise necessarily. I don't want to ramble on about this for too long. I'm sure I've been going on a little bit too long as it is now, but this basically reinforces what I've heard here in the stream. It basically reinforces my decision to simply stick with Horizons for the moment, which I'm completely happy to do, and as long as we can do that going forward and I can continue to play the game perfectly happily in VR with Horizons, then I'm willing to take that even. The only concern with that is, as a number of people have mentioned, when later this year the servers for Odyssey and Horizons are merged, and the potential effects that could have on the game, we don't know what effects that's going to have on the game at the moment. So hopefully we can continue playing the game as we did with Horizons in virtual reality. That would be great, and I'm happy to take that until they decide 3-4 years down the line perhaps to implement VR at that point. I'd take that honestly, but there is just this ongoing concern with what is going to happen then, but we'll have to wait and see with regards to that. So just quickly before I go, I'm sure people will watch this and I'll have the criticism levelled at me regarding my opinions here, just another entitled VR player complaining, and okay, fine. But I would say that when the central reason, the central focus for playing Elite Dangerous at all is virtual reality and the experience that virtual reality brings to the game, then I believe I have a right to be at least disappointed with this latest decision. And that's really all I'm saying here. I'm disappointed with the direction that they've gone with in regards to this. So let's not get too angry about all of these opinions anyway. It's a game at the end of the day, it's entertainment, it's a first world problem, isn't it? So I think I have a right to be disappointed, and that's really all I'm voicing. But I do still hold out some hope that Frontier's plans will change in the future, and again, I'm happy to wait for as long as it takes. As long as I can still enjoy the game I've been enjoying for years in virtual reality, then I will take that. It's not the end of the world. world. So I'm holding out hope that eventually they will change their plans on this and bring some kind of VR implementation to the on-foot sections too. But that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you think in comments. I'm sure I'll get people that agree, some people that disagree with some of my thoughts here, which is fine, of course. I'm just trying to give you my perspective on it. But thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Please consider supporting Immersed Robot on Patreon, or joining the Discord, or following me on Twitter, or better yet, all of the above. Links in the description below.